Welcome, everybody. My name is Dr. Sarmen Sarkissian. I'm a hematologist oncologist here in Southern California. I'm also on the board of the Armenian Medical Society, and in particular, I'm the chair of the Membership and Mentorship Committee. So a couple months ago, we decided to launch an interview series with some of our aspiring Armenian healthcare professionals. We're interviewing a wide spectrum of students across their journey. Some of them are in the middle of undergraduate. Some of them just took their DAT or PCAT or MCAT. Some of them just got into medical school, so they just got through the application cycle. And we have a few students who are actively in professional school and a couple of residents and fellows that are going to be coming up on the interview series. So today I'm lucky enough to have Caroline Mardouryan here to talk about her journey through dental school. So Caroline, you want to introduce yourself before we get started?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Caroline. I'm currently a fourth year dental student at USC. I went to CSUN for my undergrad before that, and I went straight through.
Wonderful. So Carolyn, I mean, you just brought up the first question right here, undergraduate versus professional school. I mean, there's such a stark contrast. You wanted to go to dental school early on, you had to prep. What did you do in undergrad to make sure you were ready and, you had the right muscle power to power through?
So the first thing that I did was I really strategically took my courses because, after you take your course, I think you only have 3 years after that to allow it to transfer over to professional schooling. And I didn't want to really take too many difficult courses at the same time because I really wanted to have a strong GPA. So I kind of thought it through before I took all the courses so that I can make sure that I took about two hard classes. So let's say I took OChem and physics, and then I would take two easy classes like English or one of the other prerequisites that are needed, so that I can make sure I have time to focus on those difficult courses. They come with lab courses that are hours long as well. So I just focus on maintaining a really great GPA because I wanted to put a really strong foot forward when I applied my first time around.
Oh, very good. So, you got through the application cycle, you're in. This is a burning question for a lot of undergrads. I remember I was like this too. What is professional school like? Because, a lot of the classes we take in undergrad, whether you're pre-dentistry, pre-pharmacy, pre-medicine, there are no sort of preview classes. You're taking your basic science, general chem, OChem, physics, calculus, but there isn't like oral cancers class that you take in undergrad. So what did it feel like when you got there?
Honestly, originally it was very overwhelming. Um, and I can say that it's very, very different from undergrad. So if you are a great student at your undergrad, it doesn't mean that you're going to be the best student at the dental school as well, just because a lot of it has to do with hand skills. There's a lot of every single word in dentistry is different. It's like an entirely different language than the regular, English language that we speak. So when you go in, the doctors originally they forget that you don't know these terms and they're just like, pick this up, get this, whatever. So it's very different, very, very different. And additionally, at USC specifically, we have problem-based learning, and that's where we don't have the traditional classroom aspect. We just basically have to kind of teach ourselves. It's a lot of group work with other students, but they don't just give you a lecture and say, hey, go learn this, you're going to take a test on it. They just basically tell you, okay, well, you're going to have an exam about the lungs. Let's go over some topics, some broad topics that are really important, and you need to know the specifics as well, but they don't even tell you what the specifics are. So you kind of have to figure it out yourself. It's very, very different than undergrad.
I loved your comment about how it's essentially a new vocabulary you learned. I remember I was into my fourth year, and back then I was interested in plastic surgery. And I was doing a research project with a plastic surgeon. So he was, obviously 10 years ahead of me. He looked at my USMLE book and he's like, oh, you realize what that is, right? I'm like, no, it's just a standardized test. And he's like, you really think you're learning how to be a doctor right now? And I'm looked at him, I'm like, I thought so. And he said, no, all you're doing during medical school is you're just learning the vocabulary. And then in residency, you'll piece them together into sentences, and then eventually you'll learn to be a healthcare professional. So, yeah, I did find that interesting. All of a sudden, you go from thinking about, tRNA and DNA and ketones and, area under the curve from calculus to, a lot of Latin-based terminology. And then what did you think about the sheer number of hours? Classroom time, studying, would you say at least double to triple compared to undergraduate?
It depends which year of dental school that you're asking me about.
Mhm.
To be honest, if you're asking me about my second year, which I would say is the hardest year of dental school, yeah, double. Like I used to in undergrad say, okay, I'm going to study Monday to Friday, Saturday during the day, Sunday during the day. Nope. During my second year, I had no life for the entire year, morning and night. It didn't matter how many hours I studied, it wasn't enough. We took about 20 finals in 3 days. I wanted to just sleep, you know? So that is very different. However, if you're asking me about my third year, it was more clinical based year. I didn't have exams to take. I just was treating patients. So I didn't have much to do after hours. So it just really depends which year
Okay.
of dental school.
Is, and I'm assuming it's obviously different at different dental schools. I don't know UCLA's curriculum in particular or Western.
Right. So because we have a problem-based learning schedule, we have less classroom time, and then that allows me to choose how much I want to study. But I do know that other dental schools say, like students that went to those dental schools say, it's very vigorous. They have a test every single Friday. They have a quiz every single whatever day. I wouldn't say the same. I would say that for the classes that we did have lectures for, it was a little bit more difficult. But it's just crunch time during midterms and finals for us. You have to study about like 3 weeks ahead. Some people study longer than that. It just depends who you are, how you study. But yeah, it's different at every dental school, and I know USC is a very different dental school because we have that problem-based learning.
Yeah, I remember my second year in particularly got significantly more challenging. And you sort of end up trading off some of the passion for looking at it like a chore. I just have to get through this next class. I just have to get through this next exam. And I did have a friend who was keeping count, and one day he's like, "Oh, we just hit exam number 70 or something like that." I was like, "Oh wow, you put a number on it." But yeah, I guess we did hit number 70. So did you did you get through that phase where it just felt like a series of chores and you finally get to take a breather now?
It was definitely just a checklist of I have 4 million things to do. How do I make it 3,999,000, more to
Yeah.
do? And then also what sucks about, not sucks, but like about dentistry is difficult. Like, when you have a regular assignment, you just have to put words on a paper and then you're done. You might be done with your homework and then it breaks right at the end and you have to start over when it comes to dentistry. And like, you're not going to turn in something bad because they grade it really, really harshly. So there's also that aspect. Like, you have to time in, like, I might have put 8 hours into it, but I need to put eight more because I just broke it at the end.
Yeah. So, how does your fourth year feel right now? I know it's only a month in, but
Right. So we're actually a semester in. I only have 2 semesters left, which is crazy to say. But it really depends how you took your third year. I am not a relaxed person. I always want to be doing the most. I tried to go in as much as they would allow me to, and then I was a part of like special patients clinic. That's where we see patients that you don't have to see. Like I would see HIV patients. I would
Mhm.
see patients that might have like cardiac valve relapse and like they have to be over there. Um, Autistic patients, and that really allowed me to have more credits. The way that it works to graduate is you have to have a certain number of credits in a certain number of fields. Like let's say you have to do this many crowns, this many root canals, whatever. So because I was in all these extra programs, I also volunteered at the homeless shelter that we have. They have a dental office in the homeless shelter in downtown. That allowed me to have a lot of extra time practicing dentistry, and that gave me a lot of extra points. Um, so I'm okay. I'm very relaxed, but some of my classmates that might not have enrolled in those programs are kind of feeling it now, and they're like, "Oh, I don't have enough points. I don't think I'm going to graduate on time."
Mhm.
So I would give, the advice to whoever once they get in, I've involved myself in every single thing that I can because it's experience. I'm paying the tuition to have this experience. Um, and at the end of the day, I need the credits to graduate. So as much as they allowed me, I would go in my third year, and that's made my fourth year a lot more relaxed.
Good. So, that's a large sacrifice on your time. You know, what did you do in between? You didn't take a year off from what I remember from our last conversation. Is that correct?
Right. I didn't take a year off. What I did was I kind of, again, strategically planned my undergrad years so that I could just do this transition. What I did was I went into undergrad with like about a semester worth of credits. And then I took about 13 to 15 max credits per semester. I didn't want to overwhelm myself because I wanted to have a good GPA. But what I would do is, let's say during the winter or summer semesters, I would take courses. And during the summer semester, I would make sure that it was one really hard course. So I took like OChem during the first 5 weeks and then OChem 2 during the second 5 weeks of summer semester because, again, I could dedicate all my time to one class. Um, so what I did was I basically did 3 years of school and then I took a whole semester off to study for the DAT because again, I wanted to put my best foot forward. I wanted to do this one time if I could. And then I took my DAT and in that semester, I also applied to all the schools. It gave me a good amount of time to really get a really good application in. Um, and then I went back to school that next semester. And I finished all the rest of my credits. So I basically finished in 3.5 years, but I took a semester off, which made it 4 years to apply for schooling. But I took it in my junior year that semester off because I needed it. To, you apply your junior year, you get in, like you that you're in. It's the senior year that you're doing the interviews and stuff, and then that allowed me to get in straight.
Good. Very good. It seems like, you've done well with keeping up with the tempo and pace change. So, obviously right before you got in, you had to really build up your resume. A lot of times with pre-health professions, people do volunteering activities, just to have a check mark on their resume and just to sort of get a feel for what healthcare is, just so they're not entering the wrong profession. But dentistry is a little unique. I mean, you don't want to make any wrong assumptions about going into dentistry. Would you agree? I mean, you really want to know what you're getting yourself into.
Yes, and I can be honest and say that I didn't know what I was getting myself into until I was in because it's very different just shadowing versus being in the dental school and doing it yourself. Also, whenever I was in undergrad, it was during COVID, like complete lockdown, and that didn't allow me to have as much shadowing experience as I wanted. But I did shadow. I was a part of the pre-dental club. I The two main things that I would say gets you into specifically dental school is your grades and your DAT score. So I put my most effort into those two, and then it was backtrack, and then in the third, column was like um dental related clubs I was in, or just clubs in general. I wanted to make sure I had a position in the dental club, show them I'm really serious about it. I went to at USC specifically, they have something called Fight on Friday. It's where prospective students go and they see the school and they tour, and I really showed my face. I spoke to faculty. I spoke to the admissions counselors. I made them know like I really want to come here. And they remember those things. If you guys think that they don't, they definitely remembered me after that. And when you get in, they tell you, like, hey, we remembered you. You were, these were the things that we loved about you. So just whenever you see someone or whenever you shadow a dentist, go in with some great attitude because they remember these things. And professional human beings in the dental field, they all know each other and they speak to each other. So it's very important to put your best foot forward in that sense.
Yeah, would you encourage students to try and get letters of recommendation from dentists they've shadowed or clinics they've volunteered in?
Yes, I have. I did get one letter from the dentist that I shadowed. They do like to see that, I believe, but I wouldn't have all my letters be that. You want it to be a wide range of between if you did research, which I also did research, I forgot about that. I got one from my research lab, the the head, I forgot his name. And then I got one from a dentist, and then I got like three from my professors. And it was the three that really knew me so well. And it was the ones that I went to office hours. Um, Actually, in undergrad, I want to say office hours really makes a difference. I went to CSUN, so there was like 150 people in a classroom. And if
Yep.
you go to office hours, like if you don't go to office hours, they have no idea who you are. You're just a name on a roster. But I actually went to office hours only when I had questions. So like chem, physics, like, the harder classes. But they remembered me and they were the people who I, in the end, needed to write my letters. And those were the people that I had connections with because I knew them from office hours.
Yeah. I remember we interviewed this young gentleman named Chris, and, he focused a lot on office hours, and he was actually quantitating the number of hours he spent, the number of classes he went to. And it was interesting. It's a funnel. He said, I would go to, say, 7 professors' office hours no matter what. And then he would get to know, maybe 5 of them pretty well. And then 3 of them would end up writing very good letters of recommendation. But that's the effort you have to put in.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just a number. I mean, unless your class is maybe 10 people in a really upper division class, and you happen to like raise your hand and talk all the time, a busy physics professor or a chemist, what is he going to do if you're really not showing him any personal connection? He's going to say, person X took my class, no disciplinary action. They ranked number 7 in the class. I don't see any red flags. And at the end of the day, you have no, not you, I mean, nobody has any right to read the letter of recommendation that a professor wrote. So, I mean, the worst thing you want is to be naive and just ask for generic letters, which are at their best neutral. Perhaps
Yeah.
they could even hurt you if someone doesn't have a good set of letters of rec where you were unable to build any relationship with the professor, that does not look very good because healthcare as a socially is a contact sport. They want people that are personable, that can quickly build relationships with patients. And I think if you can't prove that across 5 letters of rec, it's going to be very bad.
Just to add to what you said,
Yeah.
specifically at USC, they are looking for personable people. That is the number one thing that they're looking at when you come into interview. Because what I've realized about dentistry is it's 60% patient interaction, 40% the actual dental work. No one knows what you're doing in their mouths. They have no idea if you're doing good dental work or bad dental work. Yes, it's very important to be doing good dental work, but in order for to make a patient very calm and trust you, a lot of people have dental anxiety. Most people have dental anxiety. So in order to calm that, you need to be a personable person. And that is a very important thing that they're looking at in the interviews. And it's something that I've noticed that each of the classes at USC have very personable students that are really just making their patients calm. And I've learned that that's what they're looking at in the interview. It's a very important part of the interview.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially dentistry. I remember, for years I had a slur and a couple of my teeth were chipped. And finally I'm like, all right, time to get the teeth fixed. So I went to a dentist and he told me right off the bat, you got a crossbite and an underbite, you need to have jaw surgery. And he was so personable and I trusted him that I did not even get a second or third opinion. I just, I was able to build that connection. And next thing you know, he said, this is who I recommend as an orthodontist. Get started on your braces. I'll see you back in about 7 or 8 months and we'll operate. But if he wasn't personable, I would have felt lost and I wouldn't be able to trust him. And, he ended up operating and got my jaw and teeth fixed and everything. But that personal connection just carried 99% of the weight. I would have needed some major red flag to not continue the relationship there. So, but again, coming back to that, so you built a really strong resume. You did very well in your classes. You got your letters of recommendation. You volunteered. And then there's that heavy second pillar you mentioned earlier, the DAT, tell me about that. How did you approach it? What tips do you have?
So if you have the luxury of taking a semester off, I think you should because you're either going to suffer in your grades in your GPA or you're going to suffer in your DAT grades. I personally like to focus my attention onto one exam or, just one thing at a time. And that's what really allowed me to do really well on the DAT. They do see your all your scores. Some schools take um, they take like an accumulation of the scores. I forgot what it's called, but I think nowadays they take your newest score. But either way, you don't want to be showing them like a bad score. So what I did was I took um the fall semester, no, I took the spring semester off, and that gave me January to June to study because June is when the applications open. What I started at the beginning, which I would not recommend, was I used DAT Destroyer. I didn't understand anything. I spent 2 months on it, and then I said, you know what, I really don't think this is working for me. Um, I bought DAT Bootcamp, and I started with like initial like tiny practice test that tells you like your score, where you're at, and I hated my score. I was like, I'm 2 months into this, and I cannot believe that this is my score. And what I did after that was I just used Bootcamp. They have videos, they have questions, they have really, really good practice questions that really simulate similar questions on the DAT. And I just learned like that using the DAT Bootcamp. It took me about 2 or 3 months. And then I took, another practice test, a different practice test that again simulates what your grade is going to be. And it was much better. And then I went and I took my DAT and I scored a few points higher than what DAT Bootcamp told me I was getting. And that is what they say in general happens. You're usually going to get a few points higher than that. Um, and I would just really recommend to everyone, don't waste your time with the Kaplan books. Don't waste your time with the AT Destroyer. My entire class that is currently dental students, we all use DAT Bootcamp as like the number one thing. Some people might have used some supplementals, you can do that, but it's really indicative of what's on the DAT. And I'll also say that the biology section is very indicative of your exams every single semester in dental school. So if you are looking at the biology section and saying, these are such random questions that I didn't learn in my undergrad, they're super random and they're super broad and they're about a bunch of topics, that is how all your exams are going to be. Super broad, you don't know where it's coming from, you need to know everything about everything. And if you hate that section of the DAT, just know that that's how your tests are going to be, and that's how the rest of your dental experience is going to be. So you might need to rethink your life if you really hate that section.
So what do you think was so special or unique about boot camp?
So their questions were very similar to the questions that were going to be on the exam itself. Um, and then they time you as well. So like perceptual ability, you have no time. You have to be very, very fast, and it like trains you to have that speed that you need to have on the exam. Because you might be able to get all these questions right if you have 2 minutes per question, but you have 45 seconds per question for the PAT section. So time management is one of them. Second of all, I really liked how once you get a question wrong, it'll give you it'll give you an explanation about why you got it wrong. There might be little videos, they have cheat
Mhm.
sheets, they have before you start the questions in the section, it has other videos that teach you. It even has this one area where you can ask questions to a real human being and they'll get back to you and they can teach you about a topic. Um, I didn't really need that because that just kind of takes up a lot of time if you're constantly asking about every single question. But I did like one time use it and it was super, super helpful. They are very helpful. Um,
Yeah, it just depends on what situation, what are you strong in, what are you weak in, maybe there was something
exactly.
you thought you understood really well. I think this really is important for people that haven't started taking these standardized exams. You might understand, ketone chemistry really well from OChem, but you think you understand it because you're just thinking about retrosynthetic analysis from the class, but you may not really understand it the way you did when you get it in a passage.
Mhm.
And I think that's important to get started on these exams early on and see what it's like. And, having that resource really helps. If you can have 20 misconceptions clarified over the course of your study period, that could translate to a few guaranteed points you pick up, which are so
Yeah.
valuable. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree. And then one more thing that I liked about it was, let's say I was doing DAT Destroyer, I had no idea. I couldn't gauge where I'm at with DAT bootcamp, you can take those practice tests and give you like a DAT score, and then you can gauge where you're at. So for example, for the reading comp, I took a practice test and I had an amazing score from the beginning. I said, okay, I'm not even going to study this section because this is so great. So I didn't waste. I had told myself I'm going to do reading comp for 2 weeks. I didn't need to waste that 2 weeks. I gave that 2 weeks to a different section that I was struggling on a little bit more. And that's something that, let's say, DAT Destroyer or the Kaplan books, they don't have those things. I know the Kaplan does, but it's not gauging it the way that this is. They go way too in depth, the Kaplan books, and you need to know broadly about everything, not deeply in one subject. So that's why I would really strongly recommend bootcamp.
When you were studying, do you feel like you plateaued at some point?
Um, no, only when I was doing the DAT Destroyer. Like the whole thing was a plateau. It was a waste of my time.
That's pretty funny.
With boot camp, you're always getting better. Um, I don't know. I just really liked it. I saw my score always getting better and better.
I think people are going to think this is a promotional video for a boot camp,
I know. I'm actually
but
using boot camp now for studying for boards. So again, I love it again.
yeah, the board exams never finish. So it's already been an intense 27 minutes so far. How do you relax? I'm sure you peek your head up and take a breath every now
Yeah.
and again.
Yeah, I like to, on the weekends, especially, or at nights now when I have a little bit more time, not when I'm studying for boards. I like to just like go out to dinner with my friends or just hang out with my friends, watch some TV. I like to bake. And then I just got a new dog, so I like to take care of the dog that I just got.
Yeah. Are we going to see the dog?
The dog is actually going on a rock right now, so we can't show the dog.
Okay. We wanted a preview of what gives you a little breather. So yeah, I think that's really important. It's a healthcare is a 24/7, 365 sport. You have to learn to, call a timeout, whether it's an hour a day, a week, whatever your timeout is, come back and or the amount of work just never ends, which is good. We're providing a lot of important care to our patients, but we have to, make sure we don't, prematurely burn out or lose our passion and our desires. So other than that, we have a couple of minutes left. We have a lot of young Armenian youth. They love healthcare. It's a very respected profession in our culture. Any last pearls of wisdom for people that are just dying to get into dental school, and perhaps it's a mystery to them. Maybe nobody in their family has been a dentist.
Yeah, I would just say try to, if you can have the time, work at a dental office. I know I didn't take a gap year, but if I did have a gap year, I would have worked at a dental office because it'll really give you a strong base of what dental school is going to be like. You'll learn the terminology a little bit. And then it'll also, a lot of people go and they work and they say, I actually hate this. But once you're in schooling, you're already knee deep in um, and this is already the rest of your life. You already have a huge loan that you're going to pay. So I would really just highly recommend making sure that this is actually what you want to do. Know that it's really hand skill heavy. It's not like undergrad. It's not really like based off how smart you are anymore. It's a combination of both now. So if you are just banking on how great your brain is, it's not going to get you far enough.
Very good. Carolyn, really appreciate your time. You're deep into fourth year. Boards are right around the corner, but you've carved out time to conduct this interview. I think your pearls are priceless, and I think for anyone listening to this, really listen to her. She's really in the thick of it. It's not just theory. She's giving you real world experience, and I love how you kept it very specific. You very much disliked um, one DAT course, and you really like boot camp, and you gave all the exact reasons why. And that's what we're looking for in this interview series. Everyone has the generic things written on blogs, but you're giving, real personal opinions, which we love. So very good. Right, Carolyn. Well, you have a good evening and enjoy the
Thank
rest of
you.
your summer, and good luck with the boards.
Thank you so much.
Okay, bye.